Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Andrew, and very excited today to have Erika Dietrick on the channel with us today. I'm going to give Erika a quick read-on, which is very much unnecessary for those who have known her or seen her on her page already, but still nonetheless, yeah, but everyone does. It's like, and some people say this is the best part of the show because they get to see me try to stutter through a script, but with yours, I've actually summarized it pretty well, I think. Yeah. And it's a lot more better of a quick read. So, Erika is a dynamic software engineer and technical content creator with a passion for solving real-world problems and empowering others to do the same. With a master's in software engineering from East Carolina University and certifications including CCNA and DevNet Associate, Erika has worked across roles in software, networking engineering, cybersecurity, and solutions architecture for scrappy startups to Fortune 500 giants. Her career is grounded in 4 guiding principles: learn cool stuff, try new things, help others, and defy expectations. Known for her authenticity, technical depth, and storytelling ability, Erika brings a unique voice to tech communities as a content creator across LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram as Erika the Dev. And Erika, I'm so glad to have you on the channel today.
That's my second time hearing it, so made me want to tear up a little bit. Thank you. I'm so glad you invited me.
No, and we've been talking for a while, and it's just like anyone's life. Just life gets in the way, work gets busy. There's been a bunch of conferences that have happened the last few months. So also just trying to link up and kind of stay in touch with those doing this type of role, talking, doing channels, doing podcast interviews. There's not enough minutes in the day is what I like to tell people. It's just like, and I love getting to talk to people and slowly getting to steal a little bit of your time away. So yeah, huge thank you, by the way.
Well, it helps being full-ish time content creator now. It's my jam now.
What was that like, getting to kind of hang up the 9 to 5, like work role to really engulf and embrace the full content creation of doing content creation for cybersecurity and like kind of like DevSec?
Great question. So on the one hand, I like risk. I'm not risk averse, and I like the challenge, getting to have a vision. And I've also had 2 other businesses. So I've kind of had that exposure therapy already to failure and rejection and just being bad at things. So on the one hand, it's mostly been really exciting and fulfilling. On the other, I wasn't really planning on necessarily leaving already. You know, it's really stable to be in corporate America, and there's a lot of peace to that. But there's a lot going on. It was time, and yeah, I haven't regretted it since. I'm pretty happy.
No, that's awesome. And just like moving into any new role too, right? There's no, some say there's no risk, high risk, high reward. And once you find that good equilibrium though of like knowing you're in a decent place and like you said, having the prior business probably knowledge is a huge leverage that you get to play on compared to some folks that try to do it for the first time, because there's a lot of fear in that self-investment that I think some people really kind of, even when it comes into breaking into cyber, leaving or doing a career change, that's the hardest part, I think, is like really self-investing and like making that leap. Even myself, like when I left the city of Phoenix as a police officer, it's a pretty steady job as long as you're doing the right thing. It's a 9 to 5, you're writing reports, but you're a city employee. So I mean, like same thing like for the city and state employees and federal employees, I'd say, other than the last 5-6 months with Doge, it's a pretty steady job. Like as long as you're consistent, you're standardized and systematic, like it's pretty self and secure. When you decide to make that kind of Hail Mary pitch or make that career change, it kind of puts a little fear because like, okay, I'm doing a brand new job. You're building a new baseline. You have to establish yourself into a new career field. It can be intimidating. And it kind of probably blends in perfectly to the first question for you is, so cybersecurity itself is not really a kindergartner's first choice when they draw their future careers. But obviously you have a huge passion for it. What kind of initially got you interested into cybersecurity?
Oh man, yeah, love your questions. So I have to start a little bit backwards and talk about getting into tech, right? So I kind of fell into tech. I was working as a barista and other random jobs out of college. Wasn't happy in finding what I wanted and ended up retraining as a master of software engineering without truly knowing what software engineering was. I had my father who worked as a software engineer, and somehow I didn't know what he did or know anything about technology. I mean, I don't know how that happens, but but he always really loved his job. And I'm like, well, I'm smart. I'm sure I can figure this out, and hopefully I'll be happy too. So the rest of my tech career was approached a little bit lackadaisically like that too, or maybe a better way of saying it is saying yes to things, right? So I go into the master's program and I end up taking random roles at Cisco to get experience in network support, in sales engineering for cybersecurity. And yeah, so a lot of my time at Cisco, I somehow ended up aligned with security products in the portfolio. And, as I kind of get my bearings in technology, I'm like, I'm helping sell and support these security products, but I don't feel like I really know cybersecurity. Like, that's two very different things.
Yeah.
And so when I became a developer advocate last year, I was like, well, if I'm going to actually be developing solutions and providing resources for people, I need to know what the crap I'm doing. So I basically self-planned and funded the majority of my cyber education. I started going to cybersecurity conferences around the world. I hadn't felt like that big of an idiot in a long time. I'm not going to lie. I mean, even for someone like me who's used to that and is fairly comfortable with it, I'm like, wow, I'm in a room with really smart people and I can't even hold a conversation with these people. So I honestly, it was a little bit difficult, but through that exposure therapy, right? Kind of started getting my bearings and becoming passionate about the huge gap that lays between developer world and cybersecurity.
Yeah, no, and it's so many people get into it and they're like, it's such like the expression of like you're drinking from a fire hose, because it's great to understand like the top level, or maybe like kind of skim off the top and like, okay, this is understanding, but to really understand the root cause analysis, or kind of like what a tool is actually doing on an environment, I think can come after the fact. And even when it comes into folks getting into their first role, they learn enough of all the tools to like understand everything, but like to really take that step back and say, okay, what exactly is like the WAF doing? What exactly does Palo Alto do? What exactly is like an EDR like CrowdStrike actually pulling the logs from? Like, okay, well, like I see everything getting pulled into these indexes, but how do they get to the indexes? And I think one thing that people understand when they get into cybersecurity, and everyone says we're continuous lifelong learners. One is because everything's constantly changing. And then two, once you get into those roles or have those cases and those new tools you get into your environment, here comes all the questions. Well, how's that happening? Why is that happening? Hey, has this been established yet? Oh, it hasn't. Well, hey, let's write something out or a procedure so we understand this in the future. Yep. And I think just like you said, like that's amazing. And I think a very honest take back of like, some people think like, well, I can't get into cybersecurity because I've never done it. And I'm like, not many people have when they want to make a career change. It's exactly like you did, Erika, where it's like, hey, look, I fell into it and I realized what I wanted to do. And so that self-investment, which I've started mentoring the last 3-4 months and talking to people, I explained to them like, hey, look, like it's going to stink to say this, but like after your full 8-hour workday from whatever job you're working, you need to dedicate that 30-40 minutes on whatever topic you're trying to learn, certificate you're trying to study, and just be that continuous learner. It doesn't have to be every single day, 3-4 times a week. Don't burn yourself out, but like start getting better at whatever skill you want to learn. Yeah.
No, and the gateway, right, was Cisco, which is primarily a networking company and network security. But going to these conferences made me realize, there's a whole domain of like code security and things. And, I've been a developer and I didn't even know this was a thing. And that seems like a problem, right? So I gravitate towards things that I don't think are well understood or discussed or implemented. So I find that rewarding too.
Do you have, like, you think in the last probably 3-4 years, we'll say, a favorite conference you've gotten to go to where you just really like the keynote speakers, you really like the training that they kind of gave out, or maybe even something you'd recommend folks to attend to, like whether it's DEF CON, B-Sides, RSA, stuff like that?
Definitely. I learned things at all of them, so they're all worth it. But DEF CON was definitely my favorite. I felt like that was the most fun and friendly. And a lot of practitioners, very down to earth, a lot of hands-on activities. To be honest, it was a little overstimulating because there was so much to do. But I prefer fun, hands-on environments. So yeah, definitely my favorite.
Yeah, when I've been to DEF CON twice and I'm going this year, super excited. And shout out to Josh Mason, who we've established Noob Village, which will be going up this year to help all the brand newcomers coming to DEF CON. It's like a fun little hub to show people what DEF CON is. We'll have a buddy system. We'll have a cool, fun, very beginner-friendly CTF. We're going to have a few presenters come as well, like meet a pen tester, meet a Cisco, meet a blue teamer, and there's a no stupid questions booth where people come up like, hey, like, what's a pineapple? Why is pineapples involved in cybersecurity? And it's like, oh, well, let's talk about that.
That's
So
highly useful because I definitely didn't make the most of my DEF CON either. I kind of just like meandered through and like did random things.
my first year was like that kid in the candy shop. Like it was just popping my head in, asking question, what's this room? What's this room? And I highly recommend if you get a chance to go to these conferences, like go with a buddy or go with someone that's been before.
Yep.
Because that way you can kind of hang on the coattails a little bit and have a little bit of guidance. And that's what I did. I went with one of my good friends and mentors. He's been there several times. And he's like, oh, man, just come with me. What do you want to learn? I'm like, I want to go into blue team. I want to do red team stuff, purple team. I want to check out like a hack a satellite, hack a Tesla, I think was going on the first year I was there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it was just like, it was so much fun. And like the environment of like level of people that you can just get there and just talk to. Everyone was so friendly. Yep. Any questions I had to ask, I had that was the year they did the keyboard badge. And getting to learn how everyone was like hacking the badge to get all the friends and figuring out all the cool challenges. And I remember my second to last day, I'm like, me and my buddy were walking by a table and someone had locked all the friends. And he's like, hey man, like, do you want all the friends unlocked on your badge? I'm like, well, I haven't done all the challenges. It's like, no man, we can get that done for you. I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. And it's just the amount of like conversations you can have there and networking and like, no matter what spectrum you're on for like brand new, you've never touched a computer in your life to CISOs and directors that you may or may not even know are CISOs or directors.
Yep.
There, you can just talk to anybody. I know when I went there, the first year I went there, the coolest group I saw was GothCon. And GothCon had this super cool tarot card badge. And they made, I don't know how many cards are in a tarot deck. Someone I know.
Me neither. Someone
will drop it in the comments. But they made we'll call it 48. So they made 48 cards where there was 2 sets of each card. Uh-huh. And when you got your card, the point of their little meetup that night was to find the other person that got your card. And that's how you got to kind of network. So I think I had like the 6 of Swords. So I got to find the other person that had the 6 of Swords. And like, oh, dude, we both got 6 of Swords. We started talking. Turns out the guy was like a CISO or director level at some cyber company on the East Coast. Dang. And we were talking like for half the hour. We had a great conversation. We networked. We added each other on LinkedIn. But I get back. I'm like, oh my gosh, that guy was like a director. And I'm like, just got into cybersecurity as like an analyst. And it was just like the level of getting to communicate with people was awesome and so much fun.
It just helps with that facade being dropped. But to be fair, I did make really good friends at Black Hat too. So I think you can still make friends everywhere else. Just the vibe at DEF CON's nice.
No, definitely is. So when you think about your journey, what stands out you think is your most defining moment or your experience you've gotten to have during this whole time?
Oh man, that's really hard. Let me think for a second. Because I think, you know what? This is going to maybe sound dumb, but I think honestly the most defining moment I've had isn't really even achievement-based or anything I've produced. I think the defining moment was going to Black Hat. That was my first cybersecurity conference, and making good friends with a group of people my age. And so I really got to understand, like at a ground level and overhear the way people talked about cybersecurity and how inviting they were to me, even though they made fun of me for not knowing basic things. And there was something about being part of a group where I was accepted and belonged that I was like, maybe I am part of the cybersecurity community, or I could do this.
One of us. One
right.
of us.
I mean, before it was just constantly me grasping at like, where do people even learn this stuff? And okay, I'm sitting by myself at the conference, and it just didn't really feel real or like I was a part of it until I had that group of people I met.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the biggest thing too when it comes into like learning terminology, learning the skills. Like I've been in cyber now roughly 8 years. And like even back 8 years ago, there was Try Hack Me, Hack the Box, Pico, CTF, Over Under the Wire. And now there's, I feel like, so many more avenues. There's just hacking, there's Simply Cyber, there's anti-siphon training, there's Hack the Box, still, Try Hack Me, everything's developed more. And it's like just knowing what I think is like the best training to get and like kind of get into, that's where it's like the mentorship and like trying to find a good, I tell everyone that I get to talk to, whether it's myself or someone else I can like pivot them to, when you're trying to get into cybersecurity and maybe you're transitioning into that role or you're even going to school and making that pivot to get into a career, having a mentor helps so much just to feed conversation or piggyback ideas, or like, hey, Erika, I have a question. Like, I want to get into software development, but I'm kind of going down this route. Is this the right way to go? Should I be doing something different? Is that falling out of date? Is that still relevant? When you talk to people, or when folks come up to you and say, hey, I want to get into this field, what resources or training do you recommend them to kind of look into and kind of start working on?
Well, Hack the Box is definitely my biggest go-to. I will be totally honest that even though I feel confident sharing my learning journey as a cybersecurity educator, whatever you want to call it, I actually shy away a lot from giving anyone advice because I just don't feel comfortable enough yet. I feel, I've been through this process already when I entered tech and became a developer, right? And you go from being in this world where you know so little that you can't tell your head from a hole in the ground. And, like you were talking about, all these resources exist and there's people who are willing to mentor. And I mean, that's true for a lot of technical fields, but when you're in no way exposed or attached to any of that, you just don't even know where to look or that it exists. I went through that process with being a developer and gaining my comfortability with advising people. And I would say that I'm having fun in cybersecurity stage and sharing that with people, but I don't advise people.
No, and that's 100% fair and understandable, because I don't want to say it's like a loaded question, but it's like people come up to you like, how do I get into cybersecurity? I'm like, what do you want to do? It's like,
yes.
It's such a large plethora where it's like, I feel like people look at cybersecurity and they think of 3 roles. They think of like IT help desk support. They think of red team hooded hacker. And then they think of like a security analyst working a SOC. And I'm like, okay, well, there's compliance, there's DLP, there's DevSec, there's app development, there's software. And there's so many different plethoras of ways to get into. There's GRC. There's such a large, different direction you'd almost have to go, depending on who you talk to, of how to get to that successful title or whatever your dream board says. Like, I want to get into this role and make this much money. I'm like, cool. Well, if you're out of college and you're doing that, unless you have like a killer resume and a 4.0 GPA and some certifications behind your back, you're probably going to be starting a little bit below that benchmark, and you have to work your way up that way. So like I've explained to a lot of folks sometimes, if they're in school, I'm like, hey, look, just find a place that you can get into and then grow from. There's nothing wrong starting at help desk. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of folks think of that like, I have a degree though, it's demeaning. Why do I want to be a help desk person? I'm like, well, here's the thing. I'm like, when I was at help desk, before I was a police officer, I was there for 6 months, and then they moved me up. They moved me up to a outage management team, as I was then like that's what I thought. But I was just, I'm like, man, you guys want this ginger? I'm like, I always joked to my everyone. Well, I have a running joke that every team needs a ginger because we're like a throwaway gun. You can always blame the ginger at least once. So I always joked because I was the only ginger on the team. Like, you guys just need a ginger to blame. I see how this is. It's like I always blame the intern. Yeah. But I think the way that works, though, is like getting into any organization, whether it's Microsoft, Google, a startup, the States, a bank. If you start off as tier one, you get to learn that environment. You get to learn all the ins and outs of that company. You get to learn what right looks like for them. Every place I've been to, and you can probably attest to this, Erika, for all the times you've gotten to talk and consult, every place is different in how they maybe do things, how they document things. So when you start at that ground level, you get to learn what right looks like for that org. And then as you start to climb that ladder, you then get to have all that tribal knowledge on gaining all that information. Organizations usually like to promote from inside because you already know the environment, you know the procedures, you know how everything's supposed to look, left dress, right dress, all that jazz. And that can be your stepping stone. And then even from there, then you can get education benefits, you can get certification reimbursement, you can go to conferences where those organizations might pay for those as well. And I think a lot of people kind of like step back from that because they're like, oh, I don't want to get into that tier 1 role. I want to be like a tier 2 engineer. I'm like, but then here comes the battle. I want experience or certifications, but how do you get experience when the companies don't get you in to get the experience? And
I do think that some people either get lucky or are connected and can skip that phase, and like that's great.
100%,
right?
yes.
Everybody has their own path, but for a lot of us, that's not how it's going to be, right? And it's very difficult to tell people when they're trying to do anything in cyber or in technology, when they're gunning for something in particular. It's really hard to explain to somebody at that vantage point, like, hey, you really need to just kind of take opportunities and be gaining skills and knowledge and building on things, right? Because I mean, I think that's why so many people fall into cybersecurity. You know, you take so many of these stepping stone yeses, being curious, stretch assignment. Oh, I don't like this anymore. I'm going to try this thing. And then somehow through curiosity, you are prepared at that point in time to be in cybersecurity,
Yep.
you know?
Yeah, I think one of my managers put it the best way ever is when you're the best candidate for a position and you have a good, strong foundation of baselines, understanding, and this can all be self-taught. You don't have to pay for boot camps.
Yeah.
You technically don't have to go to 4 years of college. Like I have a great friend of mine that he has a GED. He's really good with C++ and Go, and he's making six figures working for.
Hey, go friend.
He was also one of my, when I was looking into breaking into the field, it's like, dude, get your Sec Plus, you have to get into it. Just dive in, start learning stuff. And just kind of like the behind this of breaking into cyber, like hearing the story or hearing the right push from somebody, whether it's the first, second, third, or fifth time, like, hey, get your Sec Plus, just start getting into training, find a topic you like, and then rotate through it. I tell people if they don't know what they want to do, you know what? Do it like kind of like an agile sprint for 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
Pick a topic. Hey, I'm going to do pen testing. I'm going to learn Nmap. I'm going to learn Burp Sweep. After those 3 weeks, make a little pros cons list. You know what? That was cool. All right, now next three weeks, okay, I'm going to go into blue team stuff. I'm going to do Splunk, Elastic, maybe report writing, and see how I like that. Do that for 3 weeks. Make a little pros cons list. It sounds silly and repetitive, but I've told people that I've challenged them to do this. And some folks say, hey, you know what? I really thought I want to be a pen tester, but I actually really enjoy doing the blue team side of things. And it's more enjoyable. And it's hard when people don't know what they want to do, because then it's easier when you have that conversation to kind of guide them into the right path of like, well, if you want to get into this is the route I would tell you to go do. But I always first and foremost tell people, like, you can get into cybersecurity with $0 to no dollars. You can download Linux on your own on a VM. You can start learning and self-teaching. There's YouTube videos. There's a bunch of the free versions of Try Hack Me and all the other sites now that you can regurgitate, and I'll drop within comments. But,
well, and you can tell me if you agree with this too, but I mean, I think one of the biggest takeaways from my journey last year diving into this is that, you can't know how to secure something unless you know how to use and break something, right?
Yes.
So I think it's really a matter of finding something that you like to get good at. I don't know. There's so many foundational skills that you could have when segueing into security, right? And then whatever, follow your passion. But I think people jump around too much without being curious about what it is they're actually enjoying and taking the time to get good at something.
Yeah, and to those that are breaking into the field or are currently in the field and you're just drowning in information, it goes away. You eventually come up for air, I promise. Because it just takes, I'm very much a repetition learner, and everyone learns differently. But it's just once you find the way you learn and then you start implementing that into your day-to-day, you start learning the procedures, you read through things, you ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. There's been so many times I've been inside of a room on a call and someone will say something, they'll use an abbreviation I haven't heard before. Yeah. And I've learned where I'll ping my tier 2 engineer. I'm like, hey, do we know what this is? Or what's this abbreviation? Is this a made up one? Is this an internal abbreviation someone using? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, can we ask? Because I'm like, if I'm asking that question, I'm curious if anyone else also doesn't know what that acronym means. So yeah, asking questions I think is huge within the field, and like not turning it into a negative where it's like, look, like asking questions is a good thing. It shows growth. It can show like, hey, like I'm wanting to learn this, but I'm having a hard time understanding that. Can you break that down a little bit different for me?
And I think it's easy to say that and to know that, but to do it in practice can be difficult, especially because, I don't know, different environments can be more intimidating.
I've struggled asking some questions sometimes, 100%.
and again, to be fair, this past year, I mean, it took me most of the year to feel like, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing and what I'm passionate about now. Do you know how many events and courses and conversations I had where I had no clue what I was doing? Like, that's a long time of being uncomfortable and being okay with that.
So I guess it also kind of bleeds into a good question, though. So certificates in education versus self-taught training. Do you think there's a pro or con to both, and why? I'll tell you my bias of it. I think education is important. If you can afford and get a 4-year degree, I would recommend you to do it. However, I 100% feel like in this field, you 100% can get in just being self-taught, being and spinning up your own labs, understanding the fundamentals and getting into a field.
Yeah, so I feel like there's always the question of breaking into the job market or getting someone's attention versus learning it, right? And you kind of need both.
Yeah.
So again, I think it comes down a little bit to what your particular situation and skill set and connections are. I know people who network their way into things. I wish I had that skill. I genuinely do. I've definitely always been just the like put your head down and work. So I'm very much for, teach and learn however you need to, and then, get some form of external validation that you have, gotten this skill. And I think certifications are a little more attainable. Also,
For sure.
I never went to school for cybersecurity, but in general, I think colleges aren't necessarily like up to date on what things are going on.
Yes.
So, again, I got my master's in being a developer, so I I still make fun of it. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
It does, because I think I argue with people too. Like, soft skills are important, and I think, as you know, Erica, even before we talked, I have a Tigger personality, is what I've been told, and I worked at the state.
a Tigger personality.
A Tigger personality. I was nicknamed Tigger when I worked for the state of Arizona because I talk fast. I'm a happy-go-lucky dude.
Okay,
And
I was gonna say my worst trait is that I hate Winnie the Pooh, so I don't even know Tigger.
So, long story short is I'm the guy where it's like you have your recluse coworker, and they're like, Andy, the best thing I like about you is you make me talk, but you make me talk once too many times because I'm like, hey man, how was your weekend?
Oh
like,
yeah,
what you doing? I'm the one that likes to small talk my coworkers and like talk to everybody and just like, hey man, how was your weekend? Good. Hey, what you working on? And they're like, I just want to sit here and like turn on my lo-fi code music and like get my stuff done. And
Yep.
which I applaud that. Like, a lot of folks in the IT were extroverted. I'm extroverted, but most folks are like, sometimes they're introverted. They like to get their work done. Same thing, head down, get the stuff done. But yeah, I come in and I'm like, pep in my pep and just, hey everybody, what's going on? So,
right. So like everybody's different strengths, and I don't think anyone should fully neglect one way to get in. Like no one should be not networking at all, or not, I don't know, trying to externally validate their skills somehow. But I do think people can lean into what they need to based on their personality.
100%. So, and I think that goes into kind of like misconceptions of cybersecurity. So I think that kind of just bleeds into what we were just talking about. And I think it lines into like a lot of advice I give. Like, look, like if you don't apply to a position that you kind of want to get to, you're never going to know. So it's like, now, however, when you're looking into these roles, make sure like I got a lot of folks. I tell people like make sure your resume matches. You're tailoring your resume to the next role. Make sure it's applicable to what you're trying to get into. But like I know that when job roles get put out, like it's a dream unicorn list of what they want.
Right.
Probably like 55 to 70% of what they really need. And then when you actually get onto the job, it's like 25% was actually listed.
Yeah.
So it's
Yep. If they even reviewed the job description, I feel like half the time they're just kind of like ChatGPT,
It's so funny. I've talked to managers and I'm like, do you guys? So it's different per every organization, right? Some managers will write down that job rec and provide it to the recruiters. Sometimes a manager might say, hey, I need a security analyst, and then get me one. And then you see a recruiter that's like CISSP, SANS 5, 6, 7, 8 cert. It's like, so you want someone with like $50,000 worth of certifications for this entry level 3 to 5 year job? I'm like, you're crazy.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And then I've made my spiel many a times when it comes into the certification pipelines of, I think CompTIA is great. I have majority of the certifications myself, but the thing I have on any certification is it's great if you have them, but you can have an alphabet behind your name of certifications. And if you're not retaining the information or using the information, one of my good friends, Jeremy Giroux over at Charles Schwab, he's like, yeah, look, if I'm hiring for a SOC level 1 analyst and I have someone with Sec Plus or the GSEC from SANS, whoever answers my questions more thoroughly with a better understanding, whether they paid the $10,000 for that SANS cert or the $400 for the Security Plus, I don't care about the certification. I want the knowledge.
That's how it should be.
100%.
I do think you're gambling a little bit just because, I don't know. My experience in hiring processes, you just have no clue what the other person's philosophy is or what they're thinking. I've met people who treat certs like Pokemon, like they want their team to have as many as possible. But yeah, I definitely agree with that philosophy.
Yeah, because it's just like, I don't know, like I've gotten some great stuff out of the certifications I've taken. I've also just gotten a lot of better stuff out of like talking to people, networking, watching a YouTube channel, like actually spinning up a VM and actually
Yeah.
learning something. Oh, that's how that works.
Being hands-on, or like I said, I'm in a group chat now with people who know what they're doing. Like, you learn a lot.
Oh man. Well, Erika, I have like two more questions for you, and then
Yeah.
that's pretty much going to wrap this up. So, last question I have for you is, when it comes into best piece of advice you can think of for someone trying to get into cybersecurity this day and age, what would be your advice?
I know I just told you that I don't love giving advice right now. So I'm doing my best at where I'm at giving advice. But I mean, based on my experience and the interviews I've done with people, blah, 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 I still think the best thing that people should do is to learn a technology, like go into some sort of technical domain that they can then learn how to secure or how people attack it or whatever. I know people who go straight into cybersecurity, and again, I can't really speak to that, but
Yeah.
just as someone who has been through their own journey now, I don't see how you could speak super confidently and comfortably going into a role without having a foundation. So yeah, I guess that would be my advice, is to not gun straight into cybersecurity and to,
Build a strong foundation?
build a strong foundation. And to be honest, I do feel like a lot of career paths are a mix of intention and luck, right? So even when I talk about building a foundation, I think a lot of times people don't have a lot of control over what foundation they end up building. Paths can meander, right?
Yeah.
But that's the important part, again, is to start getting your bearings, get good at something, get a foundation in something in technology, and then figure out, if I'm enjoying that, hey, what is the path to cybersecurity from here?
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny because we mentioned it earlier too. Like networking, I think is like I'd say the last 3 roles I've picked up, or 2 roles maybe, I've gotten off networking. It's talking to my network, talking to folks of like second, third connections. Like, hey, you're looking for something new. Hey, this place is hiring, and you'd be a great fit. And it's just like that small little introduction or niche to get in somewhere and have a short conversation with somebody. Because I mean, like, there's a lot of reasons why people leave and move to jobs, but at the end of the day, too, when you're hiring for that new position, those managers want good fits. They want someone that's going to blend in with the team, and that comes into like making sure that, like, you could have like every certification behind your name, you could have a doctorate degree, but depending on what the manager is looking for, or even the organization is looking for, you still might not be the best candidate, which is sometimes silly to me, but it's just like, to each their own.
I think I've switched jobs a lot, and I've had some contract work and stuff. I think that the past like 10 jobs I've had, one of them I got just straight up applying and getting to the interview process. All the rest of them, I at least had a referral, if didn't know the people, networked, whatever. It's definitely a lot easier because, like you mentioned, they want a good fit. So if they like you and they think you could do it and they would like working with you, it's kind of like a job description, schmob description, at least in my experience.
Yeah, no. And that's actually, I guess, a follow-up question I have for you, Erika. And because I've had several different opinions, I guess, on this, talking to different folks. So in cybersecurity, I've talked to some of my friends who are lawyers. And when it comes to lawyers, like, well, I need to sit with this company for 5-6 years and get my experience. Then I can move up to the next best thing. With cybersecurity, I've seen folks move. I mean, I'll be the first one. I was with the state of Arizona for 9 months. I started as a senior security analyst. They promoted me to a senior engineer. I feel so bad. On our Christmas Eve party, I told my boss, I'm like, hey man, he gives me my gift card. I got a $25 Amazon gift card.
Yeah.
Adam Pena, who's now the director at Mesa Community College here in the Valley. But I got headhunted by Wells Fargo. And it was a pay bump. It was good for the family. I'm married. I got 2 kids. So it's just like, it just made sense. And like I told Adam, I'm like, hey man, you might want to hold on to my Christmas card. I kind of have a question. And the best part of it, I was still so new to cybersecurity. I had to ask him, like, hey man, like, I have this new job offer. The money's good. It's a title increase. I'm like, what are your thoughts? But I guess my question into that, where it's kind of bleeding into that though, is like people move around, I think, in cybersecurity a lot. Anywhere between like 2 years to 4 years, you see people kind of hopping around, jumping to that next title increase, a pay increase. Mm-hmm. I guess, what are your thoughts, I guess, on that when it comes to people making those jumps?
Well, I was going to say, I feel like you're the record holder for the 6 month, 9 month, and like, even for me, I'm like, wow, I'm impressed. Yeah, again, I think people need to obviously critically think about what's best for them, right? There's no one size fits all thing, but no, I don't think job hopping is a bad thing. I think in today's economy, it's typically a good thing. I think there's a lot less promotions happening. That's how you get to move up. It's how you get to gain new skills. I don't know. I get bored very quickly too in technology. It depends on the organization you're working for, right? But I think a lot of companies, especially if they're larger, you can kind of end up this cog in a machine. And it's like, okay, I got really good at doing X, and I'm tired of doing X, and I want to learn how to do Y now. So yeah, but I do, to your point, I see a lot of people who sit in the same role, not because they have thought about it and it works best for them, but because they are concerned about how it looks.
Yeah.
And I have had zero issue. I've left some jobs in like 3 months. Not because I was promoted, I just left. But
not for me. Yeah. No,
genuinely,
totally get it.
I had 2 years where I left and became a founder. No questions asked. I just, I had my answer and it was fine. So yeah, I think people should jump around and do what is best for them.
Yeah, and I've explained that to my buddies. I'm like, sometimes a lot of folks do it, and it's like sometimes it's for the next title increase, sometimes it's for better opportunities, it's to learn new tools, and I think it's funny because like it's the same thing. It's like a 70-40 or 70-30 of like a lot of folks are kind of for it because it's like, hey, look, there's better opportunities. You might want to learn new skills. You get complacent, or you're just like, hey, you know what? I'm doing the same thing 9 to 5. I just need to change it up. But no, that's awesome, Eric. I appreciate that input because that's a newer question too. I've been wanting to talk to more people on that I've been getting to ask, and like I love the feedback on it because it's valid. Because some people also just have the fear of doing the jump. Well, what if I go to that jump and I don't like it? I think it goes down to almost like creating your own company, or like making any type of new pivot, or trying a new food, or trying a new coffee order. Like you may not like it, but at least you tried it. So
I think again the biggest thing is making sure you're doing what's best for you. Because again, I know loyalty gets used a lot to companies, and maybe I'm just a cynic, but I don't think that that's as much of a thing today. I don't think that at least when it comes to tech companies, that people are necessarily look out for. You're not going to get a gold watch in 50 years. So if it works to stay or you're comfortable, fine, but do what's best for you.
No, 100%. So, Erika, this has been awesome. One final question for you: when Erika's not doing cyber, what do you like to do for fun? What do you like to do to unplug, unwind, relax?
I'm not very good at relaxing, but I do other things. So I'm pretty artistic, so that's one thing I do. I like to draw and paint. I write poetry. I'm 80 pages through a sci-fi book.
Nice.
That's probably not technically relaxing. I love Stardew Valley. I entered my gamer era the past couple of years. I finally caved to tech culture, and
perfect.
So I'm a cozy gamer now. And I like nature too. So eventually I'm going to move out in like homestead somewhere on a piece of land. But for now, I'm hiking, I'm gardening, all that jazz.
Very cool. Well, Erika, as a huge thank you for coming on the channel as always. Yes. You're going to get some awesome Ginger Hacker swag as a thank you from me for getting
swag.
Yeah. So I'll be dropping you that link when we're off the call here to find a cool piece of item as a thank you.
Now it was totally worth being uncomfortable, getting my first cybersecurity podcast episode.
There we go. Well, I think I already asked you previously, but any final words for anyone else trying to get into the field?
I think my only final words would be to, I don't know, this sounds so idiotic, but I think it's the best advice, is to just start somewhere. And it really does not matter if it was the most efficient path, if someone prescribed it to you. If it's what works for you, gets you interested, and gets you knowing things about cybersecurity, then it's what you were meant to do.
Awesome. Well, channel, this is Erika Dietrick, Erika the Dev. Thank you guys so much for sticking around, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thanks for having me.